This past weekend, I played in my best tournament since about a month ago when I played in the Quick Championships. These games were 15-minute by 5-second increment, and this is how I did. So my first game here, I played against an opponent that I've played before. I'm about 1-2 against him. He's a very strong player, about a 1600 rated player over the board. We usually go into a Queen's Gambit style opening. And so we're playing in this game here. He's white, I'm black, and he goes D4, going into his Queen Gambit repertoire again. And I just go into my Slav defense, just playing super solid, creating that triangle, trading off these pieces, and just developing as much as possible. We're in a great setup, just super solid. He goes bishop to d3, we trade off the bishops, the queen comes out, and I go bishop to e7, completing my development. And that's when he goes queen to b5 here, pinning the knight to the king. Now here is, I was kind of worried because you have the knight here, and then you're going to be able to double attack this knight, where it only has one defender. So I go queen to c7 here. Then he brings the bishop here, which unpins this knight to the bishop, which is good for me, but also now attacks the queen. So what I do is I just drop back queen to c8, and this knight is now adequately defended by any attack. He castles, I castle, and I'm finished with my development. It's time to go on the offensive. He goes rook f to c1. Now that there's kind of a pin on this queen, I want to get it out of the way. I go a6 attacking this queen. He brings the queen back, and I go d7, getting my queen out of danger. He then goes knight to a4 here. And if I go to attack this queen, we got a nice little fork here, which is something I don't want to do, and I didn't want to deal with. So what I did is once the knight went over here to a4, what I did is I just dropped the queen back. I'm now out of the danger of this, but I'm also stopping any b6 shenanigans there. So he brings this knight, trying to create a nice little outpost. The best thing for me to do is this bishop is not really doing anything for here on e7, so I trade it off. He brings the rook out here, and then I thrust this knight in with my own outpost here on e4. He brings it back to c2. Instead of going rook c1, where it's best for him to go, he brings it back to c2, and that sets up a nice little fork here on knight to b4, and that gives me the first lead of the game, and the first lead anybody's had this entire game on move 18. He then goes queen to b3, I take here, queen takes, and then I go rook to c8 here. The queen comes over here to b3, attacking this b7 pawn. I just defend with the queen here. You're not going to be able to stop it. The knight comes over here to attack my queen, and I say, great, let's just trade off the queens. He doesn't decide to do that, and he brings it out here. I'm just trying to trade it off to get a material advantage at the risk of doubling these pawns up. But now this queen is over here on a3, it's kind of taking itself out of the game. So this is my time to really thrust myself forward and get myself in an attacking position and be aggressive. So I do that by going rook to c2, the best engine move. Knight to d3, looking to defend this f2 pawn. And I just bring my other rook into the game. So he tries to stop any back rank opportunities by going h3. I go rook to d2, which is removing this knight from this position now that it's being double attacked. So the knight comes back over here to e5, and I thrust my queen over here to e2. Rook to f1, which is basically his best try. And I go rook to d1, thinking, I'll just take. Queen comes here. Or if he takes here, I'll take here, and he comes here. Either way, this king's coming here. But what I really had is I had a nice little mate in 4. If I just took with the queen, if he takes there, that's a mate, obviously, right? Now, if I take there, the king has to come here, which is what I wanted to do in the first place. And then after king to h2, you could even go queen to g2 check. And then after the king takes, you just take here, and then you got checkmate here. Did not find that in the game. What I did instead was I went rook to d1 here, looking to trade off the rook, which is what he does. He trades. King's where I wanted to be anyways. And then I throw this rook over here. The knight covers the escape square here, and we're looking at mate right here. He then goes queen to e7, and I get my mate, and I win my first game of the day against about a 1600 rated player. I was super stoked about that. That's a great start to have when you're playing in a quick tournament like this. So I go to my second game here, and I'm playing against a 1450 rated player, and we've played in the past, and he's a pretty strong player from what I remember. And so I get white here, and I go into my Italian game, but he goes into the Sicilian defense, so I go into my Alpin. So we go in, and in this position, I push up here because what it is, it's a better structure of the French because I'm able to get my knight over here on c3. And he doesn't have the c pawn to really attack my center. So he goes e6, and we're going into that Italian structure kind of game. I get my knights out, and bishop to e3, and completely missed that. I just dropped the b2 pawn. And I was just rushing into this opening, just playing solid moves. What I should have done instead is brought my knight over here to c3. So the queen takes, and I bring my knight over here to d2. Now he's got a slight advantage, not a huge advantage, but something that my queen side now is kind of blown up for the most part. So he brings the rook bishop over, looking to attack all my pieces here. and I go to attack the queen, and he wants to trade the bishop here, throwing the check. I just take with my knight. You don't take with the queen, because if you do that, the queen takes the rook, and if you take with the bishop, then you have 2 attackers here on this pawn, and you're able to pick those up. So I take with the knight, queen takes the second pawn, and now it's an even game at this point, but without my queenside pawns, I feel very, very naked and exposed. So what I try to do is I try to just develop as quick as possible, bring this bishop over here to b5, queen comes over here to a5, and I castle. So now with my development complete, it's time to figure out how I can expose his pieces as much as possible. He's only developed 2 pieces compared to all of mine, and so I have a slight advantage there. So I've lost to 2 pawns, but I got a lead in development. He goes a6, I just take the knight, he takes back with the b pawn, and I go knight to b3 attacking this queen. Queen comes back over here to c7, and I get the nice outpost here on c5. He goes knight to e7, trying to just get his king castled. After go queen to d3, attacking this pawn, he pushes the pawn up here to a5. I go rook to a1 and going to attack it again. He then brings the queen out, looking to, I don't know what he was doing here, but I just bring my rook over here in b1, and now both my rooks are active and fighting on the queen side, and now the loss of the pawns has become a little bit more of my strength. He brings the queen over here to a7. I just bring this rook over here. This pawn is probably going to be falling anytime soon. And while I'm trying to figure out what my next move is, depending on what he is, I know for a fact that bishop to a6 here is a blunder. Luckily for me, he plays it. And immediately, I don't even think twice about it. I just take knight takes a6 here. After the queen takes, you trade the queens. And after the rook takes here, you now have this rook here. And now I'm up a whole rook in this endgame. Yes, he has more pawns, but I have the piece advantage. And so the engine has me up 7.5 points. He pushes forward, try not to lose this pawn. And I say, let's trade off this rook. You have to take, because if you do this, you have checkmate. So you have to take the rook, which is what he does. I take back, and now I'm up a whole rook in this endgame, and I'm just looking to trade off this bishop for this knight. So he pushes here, and then I'm thinking I can get really aggressive here and try to win this knight here. I take here, get the check here, and if he comes here, I have the knight here, which would be great, but he goes to attack the bishop, obviously. And so what I do is I go bishop to c3 here, attacking this pawn. Pawn takes, I take, and then I allow myself to get forked here. Now there's a way to save it by going rook to b6 here and getting my bishop out of danger. But I go for the pawn instead. After he takes, I take the pawn here. He brings the knight back, protecting this pawn. I go to attack the knight comes here. I take this pawn. His pawns are falling. And he throws in a check here, winning my e5. This is going to be the worst thing in the world, but I have a rook in the endgame, and the engine is still very favorable in my position. I felt really good about my position. I just can't blunder. So I go h3 here, trying not to blunder this g pawn. Allows me to get this rook out of the game. And after he pushes d4, I've made this mistake many times before where I don't take passed pawns seriously. I calculated, I said I can get my king there in time, so let's just go and attack his pawns. He pushes forward, I take here. He pushes forward again, and I had the tactical move of going here with the check. I should have just taken it. But instead, I got scared, so I go king to e2 here. I'm just being safe. And it's completely winning, but I could have ended this much sooner. He goes knight to c4 here. I take the last remaining pawn. He brings the king over here, and I move over here to h6 just because these are attacking squares for the knight. So I just want to get out of danger. And after he brings the king over here to c3, it's over because I have a rook to c7 here. I'm going to trade off this knight. And after he moves the king out of the way, I take. And now I have 3 pawns against the king. And this is just easy winning. I just basically have to make sure is that when I'm in this position, I'm just trying to avoid getting a stalemate. I want to get opposition here and get the win. So he moves over here. I get to f4 here. He pushes back. Now I'm in opposition. It's an easy win from here. And after coming here, I go g6. It's a check. I'm going to be able to walk up and get my queen, and I win my second game. So I'm 2-2 going into the third round. This is a fantastic start to this tournament. All these games that are recorded over the board today were recorded using ID Chess. ID Chess is a smartphone app that recognizes and digitizes all your chess games using an AI engine within your smartphone. It also lets you broadcast your games in real time so viewers can watch your games as you play them. And what's best is after the games, you can use the built-in engine within the app to then analyze your games with your opponent right away. So if you'd like to give ID Chess a try, click on the link in the description and use code SLAGCHESS at checkout for a 10% discount. So going into the third round here, I'm on the top board. I'm playing against about an 1800, 1850 rated player. He's white, I'm black. And to start us off, He goes e4, so we go into a Caro-Kann. Now we go into a classical theory, and I know pretty much a lot of classical moves, so we get to about to the 11th move here of just theory, and now it's time for him to castle. And he castles long, and I don't know the theory from this point. I don't really know how to best attack it, and this is where I was kind of out of my depth. I go knight to d5, one centralizes my knight and attacking this bishop. He drops the bishop back, and then I push up here to b5. I'm looking to go a5 and attack his king. He brings the knight over here to e4. I just continue pushing because I have, you know, this knight is booing this pawn, and he starts pushing on the king side. I didn't know necessarily what to do, so I went bishop to e7 here, looking to possibly prevent this pawn from pushing here. He pushes anyways. I take with the h pawn, he takes with the knight, and then I push here thinking I'm going to remove this defender, but what he does instead was surprising. He goes knight takes f7 here. If I take here, he then has a check here, and he's going to be winning this pawn as well. This completely shreds up my king side. My queen is attacked, but it's not terrible. The engine has me at even. What I needed to find was queen to a5 here, but I was afraid if I went queen to a5 here, you have queen to a3, and I can't take back because the bishop takes here, and I'm losing. However, I did have this move here to win my queen back, but after king to d2, this is dead in the water. And so what the move was after going queen to a5, let's say he went a3 like I was expecting, you just go queen to b5, offering a trade of queens. Best thing for him to do is queen to f5 here, just getting his queen into the game, and then just taking on an a3 here, and then having him push here. That's very hard to find in the moment, especially, you know, in a quick time control type of game. So I go queen to c8, where I'm at, attacking this knight, and he takes the g7 pawn here, which completely eviscerates all the pawns on my king side. My king is super exposed, and I go to attack the knight. That was a losing move, however. What I should have done instead is I should have gone to d8 instead. That would have given me better chances of winning. But now that I'm in f8, I'm in a lot more danger. You see that the engine swing is in his favor, 7.2. It's basically over for me. And so as we push on, I just try to simplify. He's running low on the clock, so what I'm doing is trying to play quick and try to survive as long as possible. He's down to about the last 30 seconds at this point, but he's finding all the moves, and then he infiltrates my pieces. So he got the double check here. I have to move the king. I wish I could have just taken here. He takes the rook. I go to attack his queen. The queen just comes down with check, and that's the only move to do to stop the mate, so that he gets my queen, and it's basically over. I'm just trying to survive, trying to get the clock, but he ends up finding mate right here and wins the game. After the third round, I'm 2 out of 3. I can at least get to second place if I just play well in this last round. And so I'm playing against a 1700 rated player here. I'm white, he's black. Usually I play black against him of some wild Caro-Kann games, but now I'm playing white, and his repertoire is to go the Sicilian. So we go into the classic, you know, d5 you take, the queen comes, you go to knight to f3, he goes a6, and I push up here to d4. The engine already has me a little bit ahead, especially after the taking, and I take c4 here. I'm almost a full point ahead at this point. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to attack the queen, get a lead in development, and just attack as quick as possible. So that's exactly what happens. We just develop our pieces, and we get to this point where, you know, I thrust forward attacking this knight here. He takes, I take, and now this knight has to move. So he goes over here to d7, and I take here and here. Now I see at this point that there is a tactical shot of possibly getting here, taking, getting the queen here, and possibly winning the game. So I bring my rook over here to e3, seeing that, and he goes b5, completely missing this tactical shot. And this is actually a brilliant move according to the engine. Bishop takes h7, king takes, queen takes, boom. And I'm supposed to go knight here and then push my rook here. But after pushing my rook here, he finds f6 anyways, and after there, it's transposing into the best line. I'm up 7 points, but I'm trying to figure out what's the best way of getting there. I would love to get my knight over here on d6, and that way I can stop the escape square here. But he takes the pawn over here on e5, which prevents this from happening. So I go rook to d1. He goes knight to c4 here, preventing this from happening yet again. And so what I'm doing is, oh, this knight's here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to attack it. And I'm just trying to remove the knight, but it's a mistake. It brings him back into the game. That's because he can get his bishop here. Now, if I take here and the bishop takes here, there's not a lot I can do to infiltrate this position. So I go knight to c5 here, looking to attack this bishop possibly. I would also like to get my rook over here to d7 and move this queen out of the way. But then he has knight to e5 here. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but this cuts off the defense of this knight. So I go to remove the knight again, but he has the queen takes here. So I went from a 7-point advantage, and now I'm down 10 points of advantage. And now I'm completely losing. So I move over here, king to h1. He goes throw a mate threat here. And so I go over here to d2, which is a blunder because all he has to do is bring his rook over here to d8, and it's mate and 9. It's an easy win because I'm not able to just defend completely because, you know, I'm just completely lost at this point. However, after I go rook to d2 here, he goes queen to c1, lets me drop it back. This is still there, by the way, but he doesn't find it. He throws another mate threat here on queen to c2. I just say, great, I'll just defend this. And then he throws rook to a to d8, just slightly too late. Now I take the knight here, and he then sacks the queen, queen to g2. You can see the eval bar should have been my favorite. What he was thinking is here, here, and then there, and it's checkmate. But he forgot that my queen has this space covered. So after he does that, I take, he realizes that this plan isn't going to work, and he just threw his queen away. So then he goes rook to d2 here. My rook is pinned. And I say, I'm going to go on the attack. Queen to h7, king to there, and I just come back to h5 here. The king comes out. I take there with check. And this is a mistake because you have rook takes f6. And after the check here, he just comes here, and it's completely winning for him. You have checkmate threats right here. So the eval bar easily swings back in his favor. He takes back with the rook. He's in the lead. I take the check, all I had to do, but he brings the rook back, which unpins, you know, the threat from the rook here. And so I say, I'm unpinning. He takes, I take, but now this rook is pinned. He's in a bad position. The king comes here. I throw a check. He comes here. I throw another check. He comes back. I throw another check. He comes here, and then now I'm pinned the rook yet again. He then throws a check here. I just come back to h1. I'm completely safe here as long as his rook is checked. He comes to g4. And then I throw another check, the king moves, and I take, and I'm easily win this game from here on out. He resigns, and I finished the tournament 3 and 4. So I finished 3rd place in this tournament, and my ELO rating went up 122 points. So that's almost as much as it was about 4 weeks ago when I did the quick championship. So if you like that video, please like and subscribe. Comment down below what game was your favorite and what mistakes that I may have made in the games that I might have not have gone over in this video. The next tournament recap will be here, and we'll see you next time.